Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode on our normal scheduled time every other week here. And today we're going to be we're going to be starting back because we hear these questions a lot about starting a microgreen farm in your home and what you need to do and all that stuff. And myself and Andy both started in the house and have grown from there and built more. So I think we're pretty qualified to do that. And we'll get into all of that in a moment. If you guys got any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. We will go through them if they're appropriate for what we're talking about, or at the end of the podcast as well. We'll go through a whole Q&A session. So, Andy, how are you doing?
Good. I'm tired today.
I heard you had a lot of work.
I was telling you before the show started, we hiked 5 miles this morning, and then it was leg day at the gym. So that's never good to do both of those things on the same day. I would not advise it at all. But
definitely
I'll probably be sore tomorrow, but good so far.
Definitely split up leg days.
Yeah.
So Andy will not be walking anywhere tomorrow. So him and his wife will be staying on the couch or the bed all day. That's where I would be.
I wish that were true.
Well, let's get into the podcast and talk about why you started home, why we would recommend. I would recommend. I'm assuming Andy would the same, but why I would recommend starting at home and starting small. First off, you want to start growing for yourself. Start as a hobbyist, right? So with the mindset that you might want to grow this into a business, so get the proper equipment, get the proper racks, the proper trays, everything that you need to start to grow it into a business. And if you just grow it as a hobbyist, you still got great equipment that's going to last you forever to use and go with. So start it with the mindset of a hobbyist, but hey, this might turn into business. So let's get the proper stuff. Don't get cheap stuff that's just going to break and fall apart on you, because that might frustrate you even more if you get them deep trays that some people love to use. Are very flimsy, and after a couple of uses you break them. You might like, this isn't going to work. I'm gonna go through so much equipment. This is going to cost so much more money. So having the right mindset to start with, but it still gives you a low barrier entry to get started. I've always said, like, we started for $1,000 and built up from there. It's not much money. Even if you're just going to grow it for yourself, you're going to save yourself that $1,000 over time in the food that you're going to have to eat yourself and your family and everything else with the microgreens. So I definitely would do that, and just pick one clear goal before you start. Like, so if you're going to start as a hobbyist and you're thinking about doing a business, but you're not sure, so what would you eat as a personal use? That's the seed you're going to get. That's what you're going to grow and all that stuff. Then you move into maybe a side hustle and you're selling to a few chefs, or you're going to the farmers markets or something like that. And then you grow into doing chefs wholesales and everything else, but we can get into that in later episodes. Andy, what do you recommend starting?
Yeah, I totally agree on the flimsy trays. Don't bother. With Bootstrap Farmer, it's buy once, cry once. That's what we always say.
Yes,
they're gonna last you forever. I mean, we literally, I kid you not, we have a routine. So we bought a bunch of those back in the day. We basically just use them as top trays for germination at this point, just to get rid of them over time. And when one breaks far enough to where it's no longer useful, the tradition at our farm is, we call it, we're Wookiee ripping it in half. So once it literally gets to that point where they're just literally share, you shouldn't be able to do that with your microgreens trays. You should not be able to literally rip it in half with your hands. So go to bootstrapfarmer.com. I mean, they have phenomenal trays. I know you have thousands of them. We have thousands of them. I mean, we've probably broken 6, if even, that we've had to literally get rid of in 5 years. I mean, it's so hard to actually break them. They're fantastic. And it's usually like the actual process of washing them and putting them on the racks, ironically, that we tend to break them. It's not actually planting or doing any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, 100% start in your house, stay in your house as long as you possibly can. The longer you can be at home, the less expenses you're going to have that are going to be external expenses. And I'm sure we'll get into that as we go through this process as well. But yeah, get good quality stuff, buy it once, use it, and it'll last you forever. That's the beauty of it.
Exactly. Yeah, we 5 trays. We broken 5 trays from Bootstrap that had the corners unusable because they were the bottom tray, so water would leak, out of them, obviously. Yeah. And we called Bootstrap, got on the phone with them, told them what happened, and they sent us a 10-pack to replace them. So they go above and beyond if you do happen to have them. I think that's 5 years that they warranty them for, I believe. It's either 3 or 5 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I forget. this point,
It's
I
a
got so
while.
many trays that I don't know. But yeah, it's a while that they guarantee them. So I mean, you definitely can get them back if you just call them. Very good people to deal with too.
Yeah.
Good to do business with people that are good people. So highly recommend them.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about home setup, space, equipment, and some practical and actionable things that you can do with a home setup. Um, so you're gonna need to find a spot, right? You're gonna need to find like a spot that you can grow in and everything else. Ideally, where there's not animals around. I know you can have them in some area that's close by and stuff, and talking to some experts about that and everything else. But I would recommend the best practice would be around not around animals can get in there and everything else because you just don't know what they're going to need to do to the plants. If you have a cat, they might crawl all over the racks. You don't know. Dogs might grab a tray and take it away. But you don't know. So if you can kind of have it in an area where you can have it, so you're going to need to measure out. Like if you're doing a closet, you could do a closet so you can shut it off, right? And you can have air control in there and everything like that. But you want to measure everything to make sure you have that. Make sure you have outlets that are nearby to plug stuff in. A lot of closets don't maybe have that or have enough, but can you run a wire out and everything like that? So you're going to make sure you make that setup possible there. That's the first thing I would do if I was starting is find this dedicated spot where I'm going to grow the microgreens, where I'm going to set it up, and something that can be there for a very long time. What do you think, Andy? Andy frozen. So I think Andy is frozen right now because Andy cannot be that still possibly. So yeah, he's still a little frozen. So when he comes back, we'll get him into that. But other things you got to worry about when you set up is also temperature, humidity areas for that spot and everything else, and airflow. In a closet, you're going to have issues with airflow. So you're going to need a fan in there. Obviously, you should have a fan anyway, but you're going to have to think about that stuff and how much that humidity would and everything else. So like where you can get a dehumidifier if you're long term and everything else. What are you going to do with that? Easy access for daily working and cleaning. A lot of people forget about where they're going to clean these trays at, right? And how they're going to clean the floor and get underneath the racks and everything like that. You got to make sure you have easy access to clean the racks, to clean the trays, to clean underneath it, all of that stuff that you have to think about. So keep that in mind as well when you're going forward. I'm sure Andy will be back with us in a little bit, but we will continue to go along. If you guys have any questions, make sure you put that into the chat. And then some other essential equipment that we have to worry that we want to get. So now we thought about a space where we're going to put it and everything like that. So thing you want to worry about is also your equipment. So you're going to want to do a vertical rack, right? We recommend the 6-tier rack. So you have 5 shelves to at least grow on. You can expand from there and move stuff around if you want. But at the beginning, a 6-tier rack to set it up. You're going to need to get shallow trays from Bootstrap Farmer. I recommend going ahead and getting 2 30-packs, one with holes, one without holes. So that way you can go with 2 full rounds. Because of what we did is we germinated on the bottom shelf with no lights when we first started. And then we use the other 4 shelves for growing. So it gives us 16 spots. So basically we could turn that rack over with 30 trays. You're not quite with that, but you can get close. So you can do 14 one time, 16 the next time. And that way you can get 2 weeks grow out of everything and clean them and everything else. So you can go quite a while with this 2 30 counts of trays with the 5 tiers to grow on, one to germinate on, 4 to plant on. Welcome back in, Andy. Maybe not. He's freezing again. It looks like fuzzy. There he is. I think.
I don't know. I can hear and see you, and everything seems clear on your side. So I'm not sure what's going on with my stupid internet here. It's weird.
So I was just talking about the racks and making sure that you have that, set up. So the essential equipment you need to get started with. So, the vertical racks, the shallow trays. Then I was going to talk about the grow lights. This is always controversial a little bit. What kind of grow lights to use? I personally like T5s or T8s. T5s you use 2 per shelf. T8s use 1. What's your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, we do T5s, we do 2 per shelf. We actually started with 3 per shelf, and that was based on all the grows, build video that we watched 5 years ago, and we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
And over time, we figured out that you don't need 3. 2 is totally fine. And ideally, whatever the depth of your shelf is, you want to basically divide it by 3. So if it's, 24 inches deep, you want to go every 8 inches essentially. So you'd have your 2 lights in 8 inches from the edge, and they'd be roughly 8 inches apart. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, if it doesn't line up exactly and it's not exactly 8 inches, don't worry about it. If it's like 7.5 or whatever, it's not going to hurt anything. But that way you're getting even light, spread across the whole entire rack. And as far as like rack systems, I mean, you can do like what Mike said. I mean, I would get at least a 6 tier. If you go through like the restaurant store or other places like that, you can actually buy the legs and the shelves individually and build out exactly what you want. We run 7 shelves per. So we actually have 6 grow shelves and 1 top shelf, which works out great. So we can get 24 trays per rack. And if your space is tight, that's a really good way to go. And that works out great with the T5s as well. So you can bring those shelves a little bit closer, about 9 to 10 inches from the top of that shelf to the top of the next shelf up. Works out great. So you can actually set it up like that if you're really tight on space. And if you had to, you could even put 8 shelves per rack, which is crazy, but it can be done. You just have to bend all the way down to water that bottom shelf, but you can do it if you want to. So there's enough room, with the T5s. But if you ran T8s, you're going to be, 10 plus inches, probably 10 to 12 inches at least. You're going to have to space your shelves out. So it's going to take up, more space, or you're going to lose space basically by the number of shelves that you can actually run. But 2 T5s, 10 inches or so apart, 9 inches or so. I've got a great video. It's got a gazillion views on my YouTube channel that shows exactly how we set ours up. So just, search for Andy Musa on YouTube. You can find that video, no problem. It's right on my main page or whatever you want to call it that. So it's a really good detailed build out, shows exactly how we set everything up. And it's really ideal. So, but yeah, the rack systems are vertical is the best by hands down.
We got to use our vertical
very
space.
Little floor space and you're good to go.
Yes.
So what's that?
I said, we got to use that vertical space, right?
Yeah, for real. Yep. 100%.
All right. So there's 2 different opinions on racks. We do use one shelf that is a 7 tier, using 6 shelves for our basil because we like to get them a little closer to the lights to get more even growth and everything like that. The only reason why I would recommend, if you're just starting out, of getting just a 6 tier with 5, so you can just germinate on the bottom one, and then you have 4 growing shelves. Then you only need 2 packs of bootstrap charmer trays. So you do cut down your expenses in the beginning. And then if you need more space, move to the 6 tier so you can get more space down the road. But either way works. Just remember, you got to have a place to go germinate this stuff too in the beginning.
And not because Joe mentioned it in the comments, but I want to shout out his light videos that he made. So if you go to NBARS Microgreens, NBARS Microgreens on YouTube, he's got a couple really awesome, very nerdy, detailed, light videos that he goes over with recommendations and full spectrum crap and everything else. I mean, it's all in there. It's awesome. So you can learn a lot just from those couple videos. I think he did a part 1 and a part 2, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely watch both of those. You will learn a ton. And it's not because Joe recommended it or said it in the comments. I'm
not
just
at all.
Saying it actively on my own.
Yes.
Because I'm a good friend to Joe.
Yes, not at all. Yes, it does go nerdy is a good way to explain that video, but you do learn a lot about everything. So, but yeah. So the next thing we got to worry about is we got to grow these in something. I highly recommend a good high quality soil when you're first starting out. So this is just starting out, and you want to be able to get this soil locally. All right. So you want to test out some few soils that you can get locally and that you can get through all the year locally. So you can get it through winter, you can get it everywhere else. So the best place to go and do that is if you have a local grow shop that specializes in that. They're always going to have soil available in there, and figure out which one works best for you there. For just starting out, you want to find something that you can get locally year round, because you're not going to be able to buy from a distributor. You're not going to be able to have that. If you're getting from the local hardware store like a Lowe's and Menards, they don't have soil past like September, October, and it won't come back until February. So if you're counting on that, and ask me how I know, you're going to be in trouble when it comes down to it. So keep that in mind. These are mistakes we've made, and we share with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes, right? That's why we're here. What do you got to say about soil, Andy?
Yeah, I totally agree. Find a garden center. I mean, that's really what you're looking for because they oftentimes will have better quality stuff, and they work with a lot of growers that do a lot of different things. So they pretty much have no choice but to keep soil in stock. And I would also say, if you're going into a store looking for something specific, like let's say you were looking for Fox Farm Coco Loco, that's what we started with. It's a great soil. Um, if they carry anything else that's Fox Farm in their actual store, there's a good chance they already have a relationship with Fox Farm so they can get Coco Loco for you. So, don't be afraid to ask for something very specific. But obviously, we've used Fox Farm Coco Loco. We've used the Coast of Maine Sprout Island blend, which we have switched to as a result. Thank you to Dan. I don't know if he's on or not. I haven't seen him pop up yet, but Dan DeSanto kind of introduced the microgreen world to that, and Mike found out about it and played around with it. And then I found out about it from Mike, and so now both of us are using it constantly. But it may not be something you can find locally, but you may be able to get. There may be Coast of Maine something else in the garden center that's near you, and you can say, "Hey, I'm really looking for this, Sprout Island blend. Can you guys get that for me?" And chances are they'll order a half a pallet or something for you to play around with, and then they'll see how it sells, to everybody else. So. But yeah, try out what you can get. If neither one of those two options are there, just buy the smallest bag you can of whatever soils are in there for like seed starting, basically, and give them a try and see. There was one that came out, I think it was Roots Organics or something like that. It was a microgreen soil, complete, absolute trash soil. It was $9 and something a bag, and I thought, well, it's microgreen soil. And I tried it out; it was complete garbage. So, try and find good quality brands. Go into any of the microgreen groups on Facebook and search for soil recommendations. There's tons and tons, but the top two, hands down, that I know the two of us have used is Fox Farm Coco Loco and Sprout Island Blend from Coast of Maine. So if you can find either one of those two, you're going to be already a step ahead for sure. But and if you buy it locally. Shipping is not cheap.
Yes, shipping is not cheap. And just to give a recommendation, if you can't find them if you can find a Pro Mix MP or HP or somewhere along that line, and then get the Gaia Green fertilizer. It's a powder fertilizer you can mix into the soil. There's some people call it a super soil when you do that, but it just adds some nutrients into it to help out and boost a little bit better yields on it. That would be my third recommendation. So Coast of Maine, Coco Loco, and then like a Pro Mix MP, HP, something along that lines with adding Gaia Green into it, and you're going to be okay. But 1, 2, and 3, obviously, for a reason. So,
yeah.
All right.
And Coco Coir works too. I mean, if you absolutely have to go down the Coco Coir route, go down the Coco Coir route. Joe, who swore to death that he would use Coco Coir his entire life, has since converted over, thankfully. So I got to give Joe a hard time since he gave us a hard time about not shouting out his video.
Yeah.
What the heck?
So
phone apparently is listening to me.
What did you say?
Sorry about that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, it happens. So yeah, them are the soils and what to do. And I don't recommend mats. You're not going to get very good yields. It's going to take longer to grow and everything else. We've tried many mats. We want them to work, but they just don't. Not for what we're doing.
And they're way more expensive than a tray of soil ever will be at this point. So you're just wasting your money, unfortunately.
Yes. All right. Now, in the very beginning, how do you water? When we first started, we used to take this is very, very first started. This is like, we were growing like 6 trays, right? I would take each tray individually into the kitchen sink with the spray nozzle hose and spray each tray to water it coming out, bottom water it, take it back. Not very safe to do. You're going to have accidents if you do that. But that's what we knew and did. Then we switched into a bucket watering where we would dip a cup into it and water. I do recommend doing that in the beginning so you can figure out how much you need to water your microgreens, because you can get dialed in how much water broccoli needs, how much cabbage needs, whatever, how much peas need, sunflowers, all that stuff. But you're going to want to move away from the bucket as fast as possible. Because you get into a lot of trays, that's going to be a lot of time you're wasting just watering, and it's going to get tiring. I have a student that she came up with, she's got a 5-gallon bucket that she fills up, and she puts a sprayer thing into it where it's kind of automatic that she uses, and she sprays it out like that. So there's things like that you could use if you don't have a way to get a hose in there. the best way is to try to get a hose in the room that's you can bring into the room to water with. But that may not be practical for everybody in their house, but that's the steps that we went. I highly recommend getting to a sprayer as fast as possible. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we started out the bucket route because we originally, started with Coco Coir, and we were using Ocean Solution. Again, we learned all this from On the Grow, and we eventually learned better in the long run. They basically, and don't get me wrong, it worked great, because we were very small at the time. Obviously, we were brand new. We had like 2 racks, I think, that we started with, and one was germination basically, and the other one was just growing regular plants. But over time, we realized quickly hauling around 5-gallon buckets full of Ocean Solution was a giant pain in the butt. And once you get to 5-6 trays worth of stuff, 5 gallons of water doesn't go very far.
Yeah,
so you're filling it up, 2-3 times every single time you go to water, and it was a pain in the butt. So we actually installed a hose link hose system inside of our house. It was very weird to do that, but it worked great. And we were in our finished half of our basements. All the water tie-ins were really easy to get to, which worked out really good. But beyond that, you can also get a little thing that will screw onto your kind of faucet. So if you have access to your kitchen or a bathroom or something like that, usually you can unscrew the little, I can't remember what they call it. There's the name for that thing, but anyway, take it off. Huh?
The spigot?
But
you mean the
like the aerator, I guess.
Aerator, yeah.
Call it that. But then you could screw on an actual hose and run it,
Yeah.
a certain distance or whatever, and turn on the faucet. And then you can use it as a hose. That works too. But yeah, I mean, I would say basically for watering, it's the hardest job to teach. It literally is. I mean, when we hire new people, it's months and months and months to get them used to it, because you have to know every time you pick up a tray, okay, this is broccoli. And in your brain, how much broccoli typically weighs when you pick that tray up. If it's lighter than it's supposed to be, you got to add a little extra. If it's heavier than it's supposed to be, you can add a little less. If there's still water standing in the bottom for some reason, you can add a lot less. So those kinds of things you have to learn over time. And it's probably the hardest thing. But for what's worked the most across the board for us is just filling the very bottom of the tray. I mean, the very, very, very bottom. There's just barely enough water to cover the whole bottom of the tray. Has always worked really well. It's about a cup to a cup and a half, roughly, depending, to actually fill the bottom of the tray. There's certain plants, and you'll figure this out over time, that can take more water. There's others that can take less. Like peas, can take more water. Sunflower can take more water. Radish can take more water. Whereas like arugula and amaranth and beets and cilantro, way less water. Like 3/4 at the most, is what you would water everything else traditionally, unless you're using deep trays with extra soil. Like we found, beets and cilantro, we can water them normally and they're totally cool with that, but it may be different for you. It depends on your environment, depends on your humidity, depends on your heat. There's all kinds of things that can pull the moisture out of the air, and then dry out your soil faster or whatever. But that's kind of our general rule to a certain extent, is just fill the very bottom of that tray with water every single day, once a day. You do not need to water twice a day. You do not need to water during germination, which is another thing that On the Grow teaches everybody. Oh, you got to spray them twice a day. No, you do not. You water them in one time and then they sit for 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we have beets, and I'm sure you guys do the same thing. Beets and cilantro are sitting and wait for 7 days, and they don't get watered one single time except the day we planted them, and they're totally fine. As long as you got them contained and weighted down, and you got a top tray keeping that moisture locked in, then you're good, man. So yeah, you can make watering as hard as you want, unfortunately, but you can also make it as easy as you want, and it's a whole lot easier with a hose.
A whole lot easier, for sure. But again, I do recommend measuring it when you first start, so you can kind of get the feel of what it will look like and how much goes in there and everything else. I'm glad we went through that process to help us know what we're watering, but you're going to want to get it right from it very soon. And Andy gave some really good tips on doing that. And he also talked about climate control a little bit in there when he mentioned it for a moment, that you might need a dehumidifier. You might need a humidifier. We went through our first winter. We weren't growing a ton yet, so we needed to have a humidifier in there to bring up the moisture level because it was too low. Like we were getting like 30% because it was just dry, cold winter. So we weren't getting a lot of humidity. So we actually had to have that. There's the best way to counteract that of having enough humidity in the room is grow more trays. If you have that problem, you'll solve it. But we weren't at that level. So you might when you're going through that first winter or something like that, depending on your climate, you might need a humidifier in there. Once we got past the first winter, obviously use a humidifier after that, and then bigger humidifier, all that stuff, everything else. And then you want to make sure that you have a fan in that room, keeping the airflow going. You don't want anything settling on the plants. You don't want airflow directly on them. You don't need a fan on every rack or 3 computer fans on every rack. You just need airflow in the room moving the stuff. What do you say about climate, Andy?
Yeah, 100%. And I agree completely on the fan thing. I mean, we basically have one fan that blows right down the middle of the aisle. It's not rotating, just literally shooting dead straight. So that one fan can cover 8 to 10 racks by itself, growing right down the middle or flowing right down the middle of that actual rack setup. I know you guys have a similar setup, if I'm not mistaken. But the reason why we don't have them rotating is because the trays that are all the way at the end of that thing, every time that rotates, is blowing air literally directly on the corner of that tray. Guess what's going to happen? That tray is going to dry out and all those plants are going to die. So you really just want that general airflow. But yeah, we started with the stupid little fans on every single shelf. Again, learned it from On the Grow. And unfortunately, it's just not necessary. It absolutely is not. It's just an extra cost. You're buying 1 fan or 2 fans for every single freaking shelf. It gets expensive really quickly versus buying one like $50, $60 standing fan that just shoots down and can cover, 8 racks, 10 racks, whatever. So it works out really good. So definitely try not to, go down that road if you can help it. And then from a humidity standpoint, I mean, really like 35 to 50%, is totally fine. And then for temperature, we try and keep ours about 72 to 74, just depending on what time of year it is. And you will find, and we've talked about this before, that the outdoor temperature will affect your indoor grow. I know it sounds insane, but obviously if it's freezing cold outside, your HVAC system is blowing in heat. So the plants are going to be feeling heat all day instead of feeling cold air when it's during the summertime. So they will be affected, even though the temperature is exactly the same year round, 72, 74, whatever. Having cold air blowing on them versus having hot air blowing on them, you will see a difference. And you'll find over time as well, like what plants work better at the top of your shelf versus the bottom of your shelf. Up top, it's hotter. Down at the bottom, it's going to be cooler. So those colder weather plants, they can sit down at the bottom. They're going to be better off. And the ones that enjoy the warmer weather can sit up top. And it's literally as simple as looking up germination temperatures. Get on Google or ChatGPT or whatever and say, what's the germination temperature for arugula? And it'll give you a range. And what's the germination temperature? This is how we learned how to grow cantaloupe. What's the germination temperature for cantaloupe? Oh, it's 80 to 85. Well, guess what? Our environment was 72, so they weren't germinating. So every single time we go through the 3-day process and we're like, well, the seeds haven't done anything. This is wonderful. And then we found out it's because we need heat mats. So little things like that you can pick up. And don't be afraid to use technology like that to find out, what their ideal environment is. So if you find something as a more of a cold weather crop, put it at the bottom. If you find something that's got a little bit warmer germination temperature or prefers to be in direct sunlight or whatever, where it's going to be hotter, put it up at the top. So it's so simple. Just spending a couple minutes and researching the crops you're growing, you're going to learn so much about them. Even though you're only growing them for 2 weeks or less, you can still actually pick up a lot of good information.
Yeah, paying attention to your crops, knowing what crops do. Farmers research this stuff all the time when they're growing, right? You're not going to try to grow arugula in the summertime. It's going to burn up, right, outside. So they're growing that in the beginning, the falls, the springs, the stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. So you want to duplicate that kind of process if you're going inside and everything like that. You can grow a micro arugula year round, but again, bottom shelf, cooler temperature. Like Andy said, versus, you could put sunflowers at the top and they're going to love it. Cantaloupe, which speaking of cantaloupe, we're going through grow along in our school group right now, teaching our students how to grow it step-by-step live on a Zoom call and everything else. And we just did a germination video, planting and all that stuff and everything else. So nice. We're growing one at 40 grams, one at 50 grams. We're going to see if it matters in yield. Right. We also do experiments like that while we do the grow alongs. So we can learn and students can learn. Maybe you can save 10 grams of seed every plant and you can get same or similar yields. That'd be awesome. So them are things that we do with that stuff as well. So Andy, what would be 2 pieces of gear you would not recommend somebody buying when they first start?
Oh, the Definitely the shelf fans, without a doubt, number one. You're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna tell you to want that. I would say that and just garbage trays. And I'll add another one. If you can avoid buying small bags of seed, even if it's 5 pounds. I mean, a 5 pound bag of seed is going to be so much cheaper per tray than even getting like a 1 pound or less. Because that was one thing we did wrong when we first started. Is we bought I had no idea, like no brand new, no clue, never planted anything in my entire life. And I was like, oh, I'll just go online. I'll buy these 1 ounce packs and 4 ounce packs and thinking that's going to last me a bit. No, it did not. It was like one tray's worth and it was $5 or $6 of seed on one tray. So even getting down to like a 5 pound bag, you're going to knock that cost down significantly.
Yes.
So just, spend the extra little bit of money. It's not that much of a difference. And you're going to have that 5 pound bag for a while, which is really nice, especially when you're first starting. But it'll give you a lot of extra seed from the same lot. And that's also really important because if you buy those little bags of seed, you're going to end up getting all kinds of different seed lots and the results are going to be all over the map. So at least if you get like a 5 pound bag, it gives you the same consistency from start to finish for a bit, so at least you can get used to growing it, and kind of figure out what your seed rates are going to be. And I mean, there's tons of resources online that you can figure out, what your seed rates are going to look like. But ultimately, your seed rates are going to be your seed rates and no one else's. Mike and I could sit here and talk for the next 10 minutes about like what amount of seed we use per thing. And it's going to be different almost across the board because he has a different environment than I do, so I would definitely just, get good trays, none of those stupid fans, and definitely get, the biggest bag of seed that you can afford, basically, ideally, especially if you feel like this is something you're going to do for a long time and you really want to go full hog on it. The bigger the bags, the cheaper by far it's going to be per tray. And good soil. That'd be another thing. Don't get crap soil.
Yes.
No Miracle Grow.
Don't do that. Definitely recommend 5 pound bags of seeds. You'll eventually hopefully move to 25 pound bags, but you probably don't want to do that at the beginning because you want to make sure you want to grow that seed. But 1 ounce bags, obviously, like Andy said, is a waste. Like you're not going to figure out anything on that. At the minimum, get a 1 pound if you're not sure if you really want to grow it. And then quickly move to a 5 pound bag if that is what you want to do. But if you can afford it, get the 5 pound bag. It's going to save you money, well over what the 1 pound bag costs. So definitely recommend that.
And I will say, when we started as well, we bought a lot of small packs of a lot of different seed. And I know it sounds insane, but we probably had 20 to 30 right off the bat. And it was really, our thought process was, let's plant like one tray of all these different varieties. What works, we're going to continue with. What doesn't work, we're clearly not ready for yet.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, we had bought cilantro, arugula, some stuff that was really tough. And we didn't know. I mean, we had no clue it was hard or easy. So we grew those. They failed miserably. And we're like, okay, those can get pushed on the back burner for now. So, that's another thing. You can just buy little packs. If you decide to go that route, at least you can experiment to see what's easy and what's not. And what you're able to, actually pull off. And then you can continue with those varieties and then drop the stuff that's hard and then try it again sometime in the future, if it's in demand. But at least like that way, you're going to be successful or at least remotely successful on all your grows. It'll kind of help you, build that confidence right up front to be able to feel good about what you're doing. So, because that's really important. I mean, if you just go, hey, I'm planting these for the very first time and I plan on selling these in 14 days, good luck with that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, then you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? So grow them for yourself, give them to your friends and family, practice. Because I mean, once you go talk to a chef, it's every week. You've got to have it spot on week after week after week. Even if they want 40 pounds of basil or something, you got to make sure you get that 40 pounds of basil every single week consistently, so that's really important to make sure you've got them down packed to grow them accurately. So, and get consistent yields. That's definitely important.
Yeah, for sure. Word of caution though, buying a whole bunch of small packs, like Andy said, that they got and they pushed it back. We went and bought a farm out that failed. It was a few years ago now at this point, probably almost 3 years. Yeah, probably about 3 years now, that we went and bought them out, got all their trays, got all their stuff. And what they have, a whole bunch of small packs of seeds, tons of them, 1 pound and under, probably like 50 different seeds that they had, different seeds and stuff. They failed because they were trying to do too much at the beginning. Start with
Yeah.
5 at most, stick with
Yep.
5 crops, learn them really well, and then move on if you want to grow something else. But don't have ADD with seeds and trying to grow a whole bunch of stuff, and you're not going to learn what that crop does. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, just with 5 crops, you can do what is it when you're mixing? Is it 5 times 5 times 5?
5, yeah, it's like 25 different, I think, something like that, or
Yeah,
maybe
it's
more.
125 different varieties you can
You
do
can do, yeah,
with mixes.
yeah,
And then the extra 5, so really you've got 130, you know, between
yeah,
selling them by themselves and 125 mixes you can create. You know, so that's an easy in to grocery stores, you know, to do that kind of stuff. I mean, I know you guys have a lot of
yep.
like, I don't want to say basic stuff because it makes it sound, you know, that it's not
We
great.
do.
It's awesome. But you're using a lot of like the easier stuff to grow it, creating those mixes, and your customers love them.
Yep.
So, you know, it's an easy thing to actually create right off the bat with a minimal amount of stuff. So
Yeah.
people love mixes, man.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah, you can make your own custom mixes, call them your own custom names. It's nobody else is going to have it, right? They can duplicate it, but they're not going to have your name. They're going to have your logos and all that stuff, everything else you've already established. So definitely recommend that. Let's talk about a bit about the homegrown workflow. So seed tray to sell, right? You got to source your seeds for sure. Make sure you get a reputable seed supplier. So True Leaf is the easiest one to buy from. They have the largest variety, obviously, because they buy everybody out. Mums is the next one, and Johnny's. Them are my top 3. There used to be another one, but I don't think they're operating anymore. So them now are my top 3. Generally, you get great seeds from them. Anybody could get bad seeds. Never had a problem with Mums. Johnny's I love for peas and sunflowers. Their seed is such more high quality than what True Leaf is. A lot of the basic stuff True Leaf does great with. Harder to find organic with that. So if you want all organic, you can get it from True Leaf. You just may not get everything that you need organic. That's why we use Mums to get the stuff that we can't get organic from there. So you got to have a good seed supplier for sure. Reputable ones that you can call and get things taken care of, not fly by night ones or anything like that. I know like Cost Tools try to get into Microgreens. I'm not sure if they still are, because we got seeds from them that were horrible. Their trays weren't very good, so they were trying, but yeah, it was a big fail on our end, so I don't recommend them. But seeds to start with, like we talked about, the basics, if we want to call them that. Radishes, sunflowers, just be wary of the seed hulls. Peas, broccoli, cabbage, stuff like that you want to start with. Just easy grows to get your feet wet and get comfortable, right? They're growing generally. There's a lot of information on them online. There's a lot of information how to grow them online. That's the ones that people start with. So you can find out how to grow them properly, and get your confidence, right? If you try to grow arugula and it fails and it fails and it fails, you're gonna be like, microgreens don't work. If you grow broccoli and it succeeds the first time, you're like, oh, I can do this. Now you got confidence to go, right? So we want to make sure you have confidence to go. We didn't start with arugula. It took us a while to learn arugula and get it down and grow right. Now we grow it beautifully, but we probably didn't grow it well for the first 3 years. So keep that in mind. It's what happens. What do you say, Andy?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, getting into the advanced ones like arugula, amaranth, cilantro, beets, they're going to be a giant waste of time up front. I mean, that's something you're going to want to get used to. Unless you have a lot of background in farming and you're really damn good at germinating practically everything, then it's going to be really tough to start with those. They're so finicky with being watered right. A little bit too much and they dampen off, a little bit too less and the whole tray drops dead. So it's just a giant pain in the butt, to keep those alive. So use one, grow the ones that are popular. Don't go straight to like shiso or, some crazy thing that like hardly anybody's growing and there's barely any videos on it. And, find the stuff. That's one thing I have to give On the Grow credit for. Their actual grow videos are really, really detailed. But ultimately, if you really want to get videos from somebody who's actually doing this commercially, this is the man right here to my left or right, depending on what your screen looks like. They have a ton of great videos on Itty Micro Farms YouTube video, channel or whatever. It's awesome. We've learned how to grow a few things from those guys just watching their channels like beets. And they came out with their beet video, changed our entire beet process. It was awesome. And then I think we were like the ones that brought the arugula plant right into blackout thing to the world. And that has worked phenomenally well. So we don't put our arugula into weight anymore. We go straight to blackout, stays in there for 4 days. We missed it every day. And that's dramatically helped with dampening off, things like that. So it's just stuff you're going to learn over time. And thankfully, the big benefit too is just experimenting. You know, Mike talked about it earlier. They're going to do cantaloupe and a variety of different, you know, seed weights and things like that. That's the kind of stuff you can play with, you know, grow, you know, if you want to try arugula, for example, grow 3 trays or so, or 2 trays, water them with a specific amount, you know, each day, and see which amount works best for you. You know, little things like that you can experiment with and play with to try and get used to it. So we did that a lot with amaranth because we freaking sucked at growing amaranth for a long time. Hated it. We had to plant like 80 trays to get like 4 trays worth of good quality of amaranth. It was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
So, and you know, now we're phenomenal at it. I mean, we're planting way less trays. Every tray comes out looking perfect, which is great. You know, we may have a little bit of dampening off here and there, which is not uncommon. You know, it's just part of what you have to deal with when you're growing those kinds of things. But overall, we've gotten so much better at it just because we experimented with it. We logged everything we did, you know, tried different things. Experimentation is so huge in this. And it's fun because you get to be like, all right, let's compare these two, or this thing or that thing. I mean, just for example, like we've used silica gel packs, you know, in our packs for the longest time. And I always have been like, I don't think they're necessary. So we recently started testing with that. We'd harvest 2 packs the same day of a different variety, and, you know, throw one in a silica gel pack and throw one without, and we'd put them in the fridge and leave them. And we'd take them out like 2 days after they were supposed to expire, open them up, pull them all open. You know, and so far everything's looked exactly the same with and without. So, you know, we're basically going to just let our silica gel packs go, and once they're done, and we're not going to do them anymore. It saves money on every single pack. That we're not going to have to use those things, and time. You know, just spend the time putting one in every single pack, and you know, so ultimately it just wasn't worth it. But that was something we weren't willing to try until very recently. So just little things like that can make a huge difference. Storing things, you know, how you're packaging things, what temperature is your fridge, you know, do you find things last longer or shorter periods of time, depending on how you package them? All kinds of stuff you can experiment with to get your process really dialed in. Because if you can put out a good quality product, it's a no-brainer. You know, if it lasts 2 weeks or whatever, I mean, you're crushing every distributor product they're going to get. Even the place in the Netherlands, I can't think of the name of it, Copper Crest. Their stuff, which literally comes live, dies within 3 to 5 days. So if your packaging lasts for 7+ days, you're already beating all the competition that's out there, other than other local growers. You know, so little things like that can make a big difference. So it's worth doing those experiments to try and get it just dialed in perfectly.
For sure. I tried to tell you to get rid of them silicone packs a long time ago, but good that you're moving away from them, Andy.
No, I'm glad.
Save you some money.
It's been something on my mind for a long time. Yeah. So we finally got to that point where we're like, all right, let's start messing with this a little bit.
And talking about ease of use with all the crops we've kind of been talking about, besides like some of the other crops we said that are harder, the ones we talked about starting with, these are all going to be like 10-day grows, 3-day germinations, 7 days on the shelf. So you can turn that shelf over every week and make money. So that's also a benefit of these. Like you don't want to be trying to grow a cilantro or a beet or stuff that's going to take longer and taking up shelf space when you're first starting. You need to turn over crops to make money weekly, right? So you want to get to that when you get more and more racks as well. You don't want to, so you want to stay with them 10-day, you know, from planting to harvesting crops. And then that way you get them out and going and selling. So it's all about turnover with your first starting and in general, and then them becoming your base crops that you're always turning over. Then you have a few of the crops that take a little bit longer, but they're not taking up all your shelf space and hindering you from growing and making more money. If you did everything that was like a 3-week crop, you're only making money every 3 weeks. You know, that's gonna stymie your business. You're never gonna get going. You get paid weekly or biweekly at your jobs. You know, we want the same thing. We want weekly pay, right? When we're in a business, you want that weekly money coming in to keep your business afloat. If you have to wait 3 weeks before you can sell something, and if you're selling it to a restaurant or a grocery store, you're waiting somewhere between 15 to 30 days before you get paid. So now if you're 30 days out now, when you first started that crop, you're almost 2 months before you get paid from starting that crop. That's not good business practices at all.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely start with the shorter stuff in the beginning. Once you have more space than you could ever want, that's when you start getting into the 3+ week grows.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to worry about it. It's not taking up any valuable space that you need. Yeah. But when you're in your house, especially if you're in a small room or something like that, the shorter stuff is well worth the turnaround. 100%.
Sure. All right. First sell and pricing, finding your first customer. So that could be your friend, your family members, the farmer's market. For us, it was for us personally, it was an online farmers market where we would drop stuff off and then they'd go out and deliver it. But this was 2021, and we all know what was still happening at that point. So that's pretty much only sales you could have is home deliveries and that. And then farmers markets started coming back in the middle of the year around here, and we got into them. But your first sale probably should be to a friend or family member, and or at least giving them to try it and make sure that they like it, and then maybe getting the sell there later. So definitely there. So what was your first sale, Andy?
Yeah, so we literally started May of 2020, so it was even worse.
Yeah.
And we literally set up in our front yard, and we had masks on and all that fun stuff, which I hated. But it was just the rules at the time. So basically we just, luckily we live on not a crazy major road, but it's fairly major. So a lot of people drive by every single day. Like anytime we've ever had a yard sale, we make like $1,000+ in a yard sale because we have so many people driving by. So we were like, oh, well, let's set up and we'll call it a farmer's market, even though we were literally the only ones there. But we were also growing some outdoor crops. So we had, like traditional veggies and stuff like that as well. And that's how we did our sales initially. We'd advertise it on Facebook. I'd post all the local Facebook groups saying, hey, come out and check this out. And a lot of people were just looking for a good excuse to get out of their house at that point, to do something. So we were really conscious about, like, if somebody came up with masks on, we'd put ours on. If not, we'd leave them off. We didn't really care. I mean, we weren't like worried about COVID, honestly. But when it boiled down to it, that was literally how we made our first sales. We didn't do any friends or family or any of that kind of stuff. We just invited everybody, and it worked out good. I mean, don't get me wrong, we had plenty of friends that showed up and bought stuff, which was awesome. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did live harvesting, which that's the only time we've ever done that. Was when we were set up in our front yard. And then once we moved to a regular farmer's market, we gave that up, even though it can work. Don't get me wrong. Joe, who was on here earlier, he's made
still doing it.
Money doing live harvest. It's crazy. But it's just a nightmare to get it there. That's the hard part. So so it makes it tough. But yeah, that was pretty much how we did it. So a lot of ours were, some friends that came by, but a lot of strangers that we had never met that a lot of them are still customers to this day, which is awesome. So it's been like 5 years that we've known some of these guys.
Nice.
And I'll tell you 100%, and you can probably vouch for this too, you will make more friends that you've never met before as customers. And those people will come and support you versus your friends actually coming and supporting you. Unfortunately. I mean, I hate to say
unfortunately.
it,
It's just
it
true.
doesn't matter how good or bad your friends are. They're the last ones that are going to come and actually help you. They'll be all excited when you start your business.
Yeah.
When you post about it on Facebook, you're going to get giant amounts of reactions and comments. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, now I need money. I'm selling this product. And it's like crickets. But that's where all those cool people that you're going to meet, as a result of your business are going to come into play. So we've now have some phenomenal friends that we've made through the business that we never knew prior to selling the microgreens the first time, which is cool. So
very true on that. Pricing, everybody's price is going to be different. I'm not going to go on this too detailed or anything like this. We do have a pricing sheet in our paid group that we do where you guys can figure out your pricing. We're adding on facility stuff to it now, so you can figure that out. That will be coming shortly. But everybody's price is going to be different because your input's going to be different. So don't just listen to somebody that says you should price it at $4, $5, $6. They don't know your input cost. Your input cost is totally different than anybody else's is going to be. So just keep that in mind. How much does it take you to make an ounce of broccoli is going to be different than what it costs me to make an ounce of broccoli. It's going to be different what it costs Andy to make an ounce of broccoli. We live in different states, different regulations, different rules, different taxes, all that stuff. So, some blue states, some red states, you're going to be different. So just keep that in mind. So, so
minimum wage is a lot different here than it is in most other states, unfortunately.
I think we have the highest minimum wage almost here, besides like Seattle area.
What's yours?
We will be 16 next year. It's 15 right now. And now, actually, I think it went to 16. Yeah, it already went to 16. So yeah.
Yep, ours is 15.
Yeah.
I was jealous of people like Josh who are down in Louisiana where it's like $7.25 an hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd be so nice.
Yes. Things are just so much cheaper. So another thing it could give free tactics to do is to give out free samples. If you're able to do that, sample your products at a market or a grocery store if you're in there, whatever. Just anytime you can get the stuff into people's mouths, the better. They're going to taste it, especially people that never had it before. They're going to understand what they're getting and everything else. So you want to sample as much as you possibly can. If somebody
Yep.
asks you to sample, say yes. Make every effort to be there to go do that sampling.
Yep. And I'll tell you, if you go and you forgot to bring samples, like purposely bring samples, open a pack.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
Yep.
there's
Well
a good
worth it.
chance that they're gonna potentially even buy that pack that you just opened to give them the samples out of. They'll be like, "Oh, that's delicious. Let me just take that,"
Yeah.
which is great. So it's like, but again, I mean, you talk about the amount of money that actual pack is going to cost you. If it leads to even one sale, two sales from that one pack of whatever it is that you had to open to give out samples, then so be it. You're going to make that money back easily. But yeah, 100% agree. Samples are king. I literally, I think it was our first show, technically, like outside of our yard. I think one say it was 2021, maybe 2022, something like that. But anyway, we set up at this place, and this older guy came up and he was like, "What the heck is this crap?" And I was like, let me change your mind, my friend. So, I was going over what everything was. I said, just try it. I'm gonna blow your mind with some of this stuff. And so he was trying. He was like, "Oh my God, this is so good!" And next thing you know, he's waving people over to the table. "Man, you got to come try this." And I was like, "See, all it took was
Nice.
samples." I mean, if I never got a sample in his mouth, that guy would still think microgreens were a waste of time. So that's the beauty of it. Get the samples in their mouths and you're good. And oftentimes all you need is like a hand washing station, some, disposable gloves, things like that. Talk to your local health department to make sure you're allowed to do it.
Yep.
And they'll give you any, regulations you need to know. But oftentimes, depending on how strict the market is or strict the location is, it just, just got to make sure you can do it legally before you go too crazy with it. Some places don't allow it at all. So,
yeah. Yes, but if you can, do it for sure. Oh, okay. Signs time to scale up if you're in your house or wherever even. Signs to scale up. Concrete indicator, number one, you're always running out of space. You have no more space to grow the microgreens on. That's the number one indicator. You need to buy another rack or you need to move or whatever. We maximized our space out in our house. We took up the formal dining room, formal living room eventually, and then the garage. We put racks, we put lights from the ceiling so we could grow on the very top shelf. When we ran out of that space, we maximized every bit out. Okay, it's time to move. Once we started putting lights up, we started looking, right? When we put lights on the ceiling, we're like, okay, we got to find time to get out of here. But that goes for a rack, right? You're running out of space on that one rack. Well, if you're filling that up every week, well, it's time to go ahead and buy another one. So when you get another order, you can fulfill it, right? So get that rack, get it ahead of time, everything else. But them are the concrete reasons why. If you're having to turn down orders because you don't have time to get to them, that may be signs that you might need to quit the job because you're turning down money for business, right? So I know that's always a hard time for people to make that decision. But if you're got space, but you got to turn down orders because you don't have the time to do it, either you got to get rid of your free time, right? And concentrate on doing the business and make it work, or you got to get rid of something that's holding you back. And for most people, that might be a job that's holding you back. But them are decisions that you got to make. That's not a decision anybody's ever going to make for you. But these are things to think about. These are what we thought about when we did it. So just keep that in mind. I'm sure Andy came down. Andy had a different reason but I think we discussed that in the past that you just was like, forget this job. But
pretty much.
you get to that point and you can make something work too, right? So
yeah.
What do you got to say about it?
Yeah. And it definitely, in our case, we weren't willing to put the money into fitting out our entire garage, which if in retrospect, we probably should have. It's a lot better. You can get a whole lot of racks into one garage. I think Robert Meredith, if I'm not mistaken, had 22 grow racks in his garage before he finally had to move out. That's a lot of grow racks in one space. The biggest room in our house is 12 by 18. We started in our dining room, which is like 10 by 12. And then we moved into that, finished half of our basement, which is 12 by 18, but it only really held comfortably like maybe 7 or 8. And we had, a fridge down there, 2 harvesting tables down there. It was really jam packed. And so much that we had to go down the aisle like this, and you had to back out. You couldn't even turn around because there wasn't enough room between the racks. It was so tight. And so we eventually got to the point where all right, well, my job had basically put in a mandate that I didn't agree with, and I knew I had time. So we basically just busted ass on the business until it was ready. And I knew, my firing was pending at some point for the mandate that I didn't agree to. And if you can guess the time period, it was 2021. So you might be thinking about what that might have been. And so I wasn't willing to be part of this mandated thing. And I got fired basically in December of 2021. And then on January of 2022, like 3 weeks later, we opened a 2,000 square foot retail store with our farm in the back. And that was pretty much where that giant change had happened. Now, when I say that, yes, we got out. We had so much more room. I mean, we went from 12 by 18 to 2,000 square feet of space, which was insanity. But we also then now had a lease payment every month. We had additional electric payment every month, additional gas payment every month, additional water payment every month. Employees now. So like all this additional expense came in massively, which is why you stay in your house as long as you possibly can. Because those expenses, versus your expenses are basically a straight line. Other than your electric may go up a little bit, but your income is skyrocketing the whole entire time until you max it out. And then once you move out, your expenses all of a sudden go whoop, and then you're like, oh crap, now my income's got to catch up to all this extra stuff I've got to spend. So it can be a really interesting transition to go to commercial space. But at the same time, if you can do like what Mike and Jess did, what Robert Meredith did, or you've got so much at your house that you're way past that point, to where you can easily absorb another $2,000 or $3,000 a month or whatever in lease and electric and whatnot, then it's a much easier transition because you're coming out of the gate already ahead of the game. We had to really push hard when we got into the commercial space to cover the expenses and surpass those expenses. And it was not easy. But we had money set aside for that just in case and those kinds of things. So, it kind of helped us get through that process and get us profitable again. So, but yeah, I mean, 100%, we moved into our 2,000 square foot space. We were not profitable because we did not have the amount of racks we needed and the amount of output we needed to be able to cancel all that out. So we had that little temporary time where it was a little rough. So, but if you can stay at home, if you got an outbuilding or who knows what, I mean, some people may have a 2,000 square foot building on their property, as long as it's got HVAC and lots of electric, you're golden. That's like the way to go for sure.
Yes.
So
maximize your time.
You possibly can.
Maximize your time and what you're already spending money on before you go spend more money, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. All right. I'm going to, here at the end, before we get into Q&A, if you guys stick around, go ahead and put questions in. We will definitely get into Q&A and answer some questions. And make sure you like this video. If you haven't subscribed to our channels, make sure you subscribe to our channels. If you're over here on Itty Bitty, make sure you subscribe to our channel. If you're not on Andy's channel, make sure you go over to Andy's channel and subscribe as well to his, and follow some of his other content that he has on there, like the rack setup is beautiful that he talked about earlier. So check that out.
Yeah.
But some rapid fire things for you, Andy. Just quick answers. What do you think about labeling every tray and date and seed type? Remember, this is beginning to start with.
What's that?
This is if you're just starting out. So.
Oh yeah. So I will tell you, over time, we originally had like little shelf clips or whatever that you could write onto and stuff like that we kept track of a lot of different things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to, when you're starting, especially, to write the dates on there just in case, because you're going to have a very small amount of trays that could be planted at a variety of different days potentially. So basically what we did is we used like little labeling tape, almost like out of a label machine. And you can just basically cut off a little piece, put it on the front of the tray, and with an erasable marker, you can write the date or the crop type or whatever that's on there anytime. It's super easy. Or the option is you've got like painter's tape or something. You put a piece of painter's tape on the outside of the tray, right on there what it is. That's certainly an option. That's what we did when we first started. At this point, we have basically sections of our farm that are dated. So we'll have like an entire, two rows of racks that have like dates at the ends. So we know each time we take something out of germination, it's going on to that specific section. So when the date arrives for harvest day, you got to remember, we have employees, so it's a little bit different, where we have to basically say, look, this whole section here is what we're harvesting today. And you just look at the end, the date's going to be right there. Keep it simple. And I would say for labeling trays, as far as varieties go, you've got a couple options, obviously the ones we talked about earlier, but another easy way to do it too is if you get the bootstrap like colored top trays, you can say, okay, well, broccoli is always going to be blue and radish is always going to be purple or whatever. And you can do it that way. And that's one easy way to keep track without having to write anything on there. Or what we do is we actually have those same little label machines. We print labels permanently. So all of our broccoli trays say broccoli on both ends, so that way it doesn't matter which direction the tray goes on the shelf. It says broccoli at both ends. So again, for employee purposes, it makes it really easy because we can say, go down this aisle, look for the ones that say broccoli, and it's going to be all pink trays or whatever. And it's super simple for them to figure out what they need to grab, especially brand new people that when you're looking at a whole thing of microgreens, you have no freaking idea what you're looking at, and that's one of the things we really try and drive home too for new employees is like recognize what this is throughout any stage. You should be able to take a top tray off of germination after 3 days and be like, yep, that's broccoli. Yep, that's cabbage. Yep, that's, sunflower or whatever, and be able to pick those things out really easily. But until they learn that, it's really easy to have, the labels on the ends of the trays, the colors, where anything we plant that day, all the broccoli is going to be one color, all the peas are going to be one color, all the sunflower is going to be a different color, then that way it's just super simple throughout the whole process. So I would say 100%, label them in some fashion so you know what the heck they are, at least initially. If that's, painter's tape or like an erasable marker type setup, you can do that too. But it definitely comes in handy, to be able to know, especially when you're first starting, to know like what day did I plant this? What day is it coming out of germination? What day is it going into, the light or whatever, which, you don't need to black out most of your things. That's another thing you're going to learn online from a lot of places. Most things can go right straight from 3 days in germination right into the light and they'll be totally fine. So don't worry about, going crazy with that. You're just going to waste time washing blackout trays for no reason. They're going to come out to be the same weight, the same height and everything by the time it's all said and done. So little piece of side advice there.
All right. I did have 3 more rapid fire questions for you, but Andy doesn't understand rapid fire answers to fire questions. So that kind of
super detailed, man. I can't help it.
They kind of took all their time up to this point. But we will be getting into Q&A here. But we thank you guys all for joining us for the live episode. If you're here live, stay for the Q&A. If you're not here live, come back 2 weeks from now where we'll be live and we'll have more stuff like this and you can get your questions in and get it answered live here by 2 experts. And until then, we will see you guys in the next one.